What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the first Live in the Park stream here with one and only LPP, aka Logical Plausible Probable. We are testing out microphones, cameras, seeing how this works, busting up tents that were so generously funded by members of the channel. And also, I did a little impromptu stream for members only here a few minutes ago. Thanks so much for everybody who's able to join that and help me work out some of the issues with the audio and whatnot. And we actually had two little short interviews with some teenagers who wanted to have a conversation about the topic, and I want to say thanks to them. And obviously, they're minors, so we won't be making that public. But it was a very good time. I also had some adults earlier while I was still sitting up who stopped by and wanted to talk about the subject. However, it wasn't. I wasn't ready, and they weren't willing to hop on camera for the conversation. But it's been interesting to already have a little bit of inquiries and just kind of getting this going, doing it for the first time. And I'm so irritated, folks, but my banner that I had ordered, paid extra for to get to arrive on time, specifically for this, to draw more attention. Yeah, so on Friday, I checked to see where it's at. This is what it's going to look like, folks. So that's a 2.5 feet wide, or high by 6 feet wide, and it's going to fit perfectly on the 10 by 10 canopy that I've got here. And unfortunately, it's not going to arrive until Tuesday now, but because they weren't able to deliver, that's going to be two. So I'll actually be able to have two for the price of one. So I'll have banners like that on each side of the canopy for next week, and hopefully that will draw much more attention from the park. People, on the other side will be able to read it, see what's going on, and hopefully get hooked into coming on over and engaging in the conversation, and we'll see what happens. Real quick, I'm also, I just found out you couldn't do this unless you have the top of the line professional settings or whatever for StreamYard. However, this is another camera angle I was thinking about using, and it would enable me to real quick be able to just kind of show people what's going on. So right there, you've got the signage. See the tent. All right, not quite sure what just happened there, but hopefully we're back and audio is coming through. Something crazy went wrong with, I don't know what just happened there, but that was pretty crazy. Anyway. How about now, folks? Is the audio coming through? Let me know if audio is coming through, okay? Yeah. Now having to fight Nashville Ninjas. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm going to, while we're waiting for people to come in, hopefully we'll get somebody here soon. I'm going to try a different thing and see how audio comes through on this. Give me 1 second, folks. All right, let's see how this comes through. And in the meantime, we got the one and only Sam, also known as Redefined Living. What's up, Sam? How you doing, man? Sam, if you're talking, you're on mute. Can you hear me? Oh, we lost Sam. Okay, folks, let me know if audio is coming through on the headset. And Sam, if you can come back in, please do. I meant to test this out during the early members only stream, and that didn't There we go. Sam, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Well, trying something new. We'll see what happens. See if it's worthwhile. Should be.
Your audio was sounding a lot better before when you said I'm going to try something real quick. It was sounding better than it does right now.
Okay. All right. Let me. Well,
not when you first joined. When you first joined, it was really quiet. Then you did something, and it sounded really good.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, so I can. How's my audio coming through right now? Sam, are you saying anything?
Yeah, it's still quiet. Just try a few things, and I'll let you know when it's really good.
All right. Let's try this.
That background looks awesome, by the way. That's really cool.
It's real world, so it better look good.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of pumped for this. See what happens.
Okay. All right. Tell me, how's the audio coming through?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Whatever that is. It's oh yeah, it's loud, really loud and clear.
All right. Well, and I can actually hear you through the computer speakers, so it actually works. Okay, so are you hearing any feedback when you're talking? Are you hearing any echo?
No, in fact, I don't even hear the wind anymore right now, so it sounds great.
All right.
I'm in my truck, so mine might sound kind of weird, but
no, you're coming through just fine for me. What's up, P-Town? How you doing? P-Town, you there? If you're talking, we're not hearing you. Well, anyway, feel free to jump in if you get your audio working. So yeah, I'm hoping this will end up gaining some traction. Next week I may try a different spot or whatever, because it seems like more people are walking on this side of the park. So I'm literally next to the middle thoroughfare of the park. And usually there's a bunch of people walking up and down here, but today it seems like there's more people walking over there. But I'm wondering if that's because over in that corner of the park is one of the stops for the Americana Music Festival that's going on here in Nashville. And they got all these little pockets set up around town. So I'm wondering if right now people that normally would be walking through this section are being drawn over to the little corner, was my guess.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been moaning about this, but the big banners I had created, I think will also be a big draw as well. You got, because 2 feet wide or 2 feet tall, 6 feet wide, people across on the other side of the park will be able to read it and know what's going on over here,
Oh yeah.
I think it'll engage a lot of curiosity.
Yeah, the triggered atheists won't be able to resist that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and the thing is, I tried to make it relative, they'll be triggered when they get here for sure. So the A-frame one is, does got to exist. It was actually kind of funny. The first folks I was talking to, the adults that didn't want to hop in the stream in the conversation. It was kind of interesting. I was hearing we're agnostic atheists, or no, the girl was a agnostic theist. Okay. And it's well, I'm actually a spiritualist. And then it was, okay, so why? And it was so interesting. Both her and her boyfriend or husband both were talking about how, oh, well, I saw people at church. I grew up in the church, and I saw these people who, outside the church are doing things that, the exact opposite. And yet, and then so I kind of followed up, and I'm like, okay, so are you saying that you no longer believe in God or the Christian God in this context because you saw people not doing and being Christ-like? Is that your position? Because that's literally contradictory to the scripture. The scripture says that people will be like that. So I'm not sure how that's a good defense of your position,
Yeah, they're also confusing Christianity with the Christian. Like in the days of Noah, it doesn't follow that because the whole world behaves a certain way, regardless of what they identify as a Christian or not. It doesn't follow from that Christianity isn't true.
Right. Yeah. So I think something I may have.
That's an error in their reasoning.
So real quick, Sam, are you hearing any like wind noise? Because it's like the wind is coming through like pretty strong right now, and I just want to make sure I'm not getting like crazy wind noise.
No, John, it actually sounds very well, surprisingly good. Yeah, for being outside.
Okay,
sounds great. Now I might. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I might cut out. I ended up having to work today, and I'm driving home, and I'm gonna drive through a weird spot for a minute. But
gotcha.
yeah, everything
No
sounds really good. Yeah.
I wonder if earlier I thought I had the right, when I was talking with the kids earlier, I wonder if I didn't have the right mic setting, because everybody kept talking about them sounding really quiet and me coming through pretty quiet. But you're saying right now I'm coming through pretty strong, right?
Yeah, whatever you did made it much louder and a lot more clear, and it canceled out the wind. So whatever setting you have is perfect right now.
All right, awesome. Well,
yeah.
Okay, so this stupid microphone, right? I got it because it was supposed to have the capacity for XLR to USB-C, so I could be able to plug it into my phone directly. And I tried it over and over, couldn't get it. Well, then I finally find another cable that had an appropriate adapter for it, so I can plug my phone. Well, not both my phones. My Note 10 for some reason won't recognize it. My 1.9 Plus, whatever it is, does recognize it. So I'm actually thinking about it'd be kind of fun at some point to go into like downtown Nashville, into like down to Broadway and stuff, and like do like the for real walk up and down and like interview people on the street, like literally. And because I think that'd be pretty fun, and I could do it directly from my phone. So, and with 5G now, I could theoretically do a live stream man on the street interviews like down on Broadway with all the drunk people. I think it would be hilarious. There's no telling what kinds of conversations you could have.
Oh yeah.
And also, just from I actually have to resist the urge to like turn LPP into a political channel, because there's no telling if you made pure politics. There's no telling what kind of just sheer gold you can get out of it.
Yeah, you just keep it mixed up. In fact, if you want, anytime you're gonna, like, before you go live, let me know if we can do just a really quick mic check for streaming our mic check. However,
hey, you're robot insane. You must be in that dead zone. What's up, Gangsta Ghost? How you doing, man?
Yeah.
Gangsta Ghost, you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How you doing, man? You got anything you want to talk about?
How are you? Oh, I need to tell you, that guy, Tom Jump, he's a paranoid schizo. How on earth could anyone support Joe Biden and think they have any sense of reality? He's crazy.
Well, Joe Biden is definitely
That guy's
a character. Well, yeah, I mean, at this point, whether or not you agree with his policy positions, anybody who takes operates from the perspective that somehow Joe Biden is not a obvious puppet to some kind of behind the scenes puppet masters, you're a naive fool who is, hoping that reality does not actually exist. And hang on, folks, looks like we got somebody walking up. What's up, man?
How you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Good.
John.
How you doing?
Good.
What's you got going on today?
We're still live stream, and today's topic is, does God exist? Do you want to get in the conversation?
Yeah, sure. Can I ask your thoughts first, or do I just gotta go in? Do I just gotta go for it?
Well, I mean, generally I try to ask people first, and then we can talk about my thoughts too. But
Yeah, sure. No, man, it's a very interesting question. I grew up in the Christian faith.
well, hang on.
Oh, come sit down.
All right, hey guys. Okay, guys, I'm gonna kick you guys out of the stream for right now. We're gonna have a live conversation, and all right. So let's get you in the stream here. So what's up? I'm John. What's your name again?
I'm Harrison.
Harrison, welcome to the conversation. So this is my channel is called Logical, Plausible, Probable, and discuss a variety of topics and kind of try to find individuals who A, want to have conversations, and B, let's talk about, is your end conclusion all three of those things? Is it logical, plausible, and probable? You can have those things separately and somehow be, oh, well, it's logical. Doesn't mean it's plausible, right? Doesn't mean it's probable, right? You can have something that's, sound and valid logically, but not actually a realistic conclusion, right? Yeah, so why don't you, stream just got going a few minutes ago. So why don't you tell us who you are, a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive into the conversation about your position.
Yeah, man, for sure. Do I need to hold on to this? All right, perfect. Yeah, I'm Harrison. I grew up in the Christian faith. I've been going to church since I was born, basically. Family was pretty involved in church and everything. So definitely grew up, hearing stories of Jesus, all that fun stuff, all that, like my whole life. Very involved, like with the church, like throughout like high school and everything. I'm 21 years old and was a part of stuff during college too. I went to the University of Nebraska for 2 years. That's where I grew up. And just a year ago now, a little over a year ago, I came out here and so like I said, I grew up like in the faith. So I've always like heard that it's true, and always heard that. And I never really struggled a whole lot with like maybe like doubting that and maybe feeling like that wasn't the case. But in this last year, since like moving out, really being on my own and just kind of coming down here and doing my own thing, I've had like a lot of those questions like come up and just be like, I feel like I see a lot of potential evidence for, my faith in God existing, that being challenged and all that. And so no, over like the last like couple months or so, I feel like I've dived a little bit deeper into like what I believe, and at least right now, I believe God does exist.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, okay, so you said that you've had. I'll hold it up. You said that this past year you've been feeling a little bit more challenged and like some, I guess threats to the foundation of your faith, right? So, what are the what are the top three things you would say have made you start, potentially? Well, you're still, I still lean this way, but what are the top three things you say have been like somewhat of a challenge to it?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is, is just like, believing in the Bible, because I feel like that's something that's brought up all the time. Is the Bible trustworthy? Is it something that just over the years has been just changed so much that we don't really understand it anymore? That the original meaning has been lost in translation over the years, and some of like the stuff that Jesus did in the Bible, miracles, and just like even believing that could ever happen, and just really trusting, if Jesus was a real person and did die, and all that, and like was raised from the dead, just like just really like believe in the Bible, and just because if the Bible is accurate, then the only thing it really comes down to is whether or not you believe Jesus is who he says he is, if the Bible is true. So if the Bible isn't true, then I have no foundation. And so I was struggling to believe that everything in the Bible was, was truth. And so that's where like my like kind of foundation was being shaken a little bit.
Okay. So one of the things that I've kind of picked up on there, especially kind of stuck out to me, was like you said a couple times, like did Jesus exist? Was he real? And, you kind of mentioned miracles, but obviously if Jesus didn't actually exist, then obviously the miracles didn't happen, right? So that's kind of like a cascade point down, right? 100%. So are you familiar with like the mythicism position that's taken by a lot of folks like them in the modern atheist world?
I'm not sure. Give me a little bit of it.
Actually, what we'll do is I guess I should play a little video of this since you brought it up. Let's see if I can find that thing. Folks, by the way, let us know how audio is coming through since we're just kind of getting things going on the interview today. Okay, so this is what I'm about to play is it's the positions of a few like dogmatic atheists, right? They're actually pretty influential on YouTube and such. Yeah, and then one of the other guys you'll hear talking, Bart Ehrman, he's a PhD, used to be a Christian, he's not now, but he's an academic, all about like theology and all that kind of stuff. And he's like cracking on all the atheists who say that Christ didn't exist, right? Yeah. So let me play this and then let me get your opinion. Yeah.
There is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who doubts that Jesus existed.
And today I'm going to be presenting my argument for why Jesus probably didn't exist. So first, what exactly is mythicism? Mythicism is the hypothesis that Jesus did not exist in history.
All right, YouTube, it's time to investigate some reasons why the figure called Jesus, the historical figure of Jesus, probably didn't actually exist.
A mythical man. Mythical man was the name of the speech. The description was, I think that there is at least one, and here's the problem, it's not just one historical guy. We know that on the mythical aspect, that the story of Jesus is based on, among other things, Dionysus, right, and Prometheus. I mean, shut up!
Do I believe Jesus existed? This is a tough question for me because I'll admit I haven't studied it that much, and I have a lot of atheist friends who are scholars, and they have studied this for a long time. And even atheists who study this subject are divided. They don't know, they all don't believe he was like resurrected, but they disagree on whether an actual Jesus existed or whether that was like a figment of some people's imagination, that they created him.
It's not a question that's debated among scholars.
Shut up!
Most scholars simply don't even think it's worth debating because of the overwhelming evidence.
Shut up!
And so I'll tell you what I think needs to happen. If people really want to keep pursuing the mythicist issue, I personally think it's a mistake to pursue the issue. I think that there might be better avenues to take for people interested in these things. But if you desperately want to pursue the mythicist issue, the only way it's ever going to be taken seriously in the academy is by people establishing their credentials in the academy. It is not, I know in the crowds you all run around with, it's commonly thought that Jesus did not exist. Let me tell you, once you get outside of your conclave, there's nobody this is not even an issue for scholars of antiquity. It is not an issue for scholars of antiquity. There is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who teaches classics, ancient history, New Testament, early Christianity, any related field who doubts that Jesus existed.
Okay, so I love playing that video. A lot of times folks that are I'm not laughing at you in this context, but a lot of times a lot of atheists I interact with are very dogmatic about it. Like, there is no way, it's made up, it's a bunch of fantasy land, you just believe all this stuff because you were taught that in church, kind of thing, right? But as Bart Ehrman was talking about, like, hey, once you get outside that little enclave, it's like nobody thinks this way. So I'm curious to, like, what took you down that pathway to doubting whether or not he existed, right? Like, what was the impetus that kind of put you in that direction?
For sure. Again, man, for me, it's just like I've grown up reading the Bible and, being in Bible studies and all that my whole life. And, just like you said about atheists, like the who are dogmatic about Jesus, not being real, they're in like their own little circle of people being that. And my question was like, man, have I just grown up in this faith to the point where any outside, like, because obviously there are atheists and there are people who, don't believe in the Bible or all that. And so I was like, well, is it simply because I've been taught this since I was a little kid that this is like true? Or, is there evidence that, that supports it? And yeah, like I obviously in this video, but even like recently I've been going to this like apologetics study. And no, they actually mention a lot of that they say like it's, there's a lot of historical evidence that Jesus was a real person and that he was crucified. And then again, it just becomes whether or not you believe, did he, was he resurrected? Because, kind of the whole Christian faith stands and falls on whether or not that happened. If that doesn't happen, we don't have much to believe in. So.
Well, Paul definitely talked about that, right? If Christ is not risen, then our faith is in vain, I think is the words he uses. So Power Word says he should read the book, the Archica volume, that's volume 1.
The archaeological writings of Sanhedrin.
The Sanhedrin and Talmuds of the Jews. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So one of the things I always find fascinating about the folks who are like really questioning, you're not. I don't think you're in that camp anymore, right? Have you come back around? So you
definitely still really like getting over the hill a little bit, but there's definitely still questions that like I want to keep learning and everything. But I'm definitely like still. I feel like I was like here. And then I went into like this little camp of like, does he exist? Does he exist? Does he exist? All right. I feel like I have enough information, at least for now, to like reaffirm my beliefs. And I'm sure that as long as I live, there might be new questions that come up. But nothing I've found so far in my life has really made me question the faith to the point of like, you know what, this can't be true. Like, I don't feel like I have enough evidence to be like, yeah, it's not real.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, you said you're 21?
Yeah.
Okay. So of your peers, would you say that more are, we'd say the majority are theists, or the majority are atheists, or like most are theists and the rest just kind of don't know, and the atheists are minority? What would you say of your demographic? What would you say most people's leanings are?
Of like the people that I'm like hanging out with and like surrounding myself with, or like the...
No, I would say like people like when you were in college, right? The people that you knew, and just in general, right? Not necessarily like close friends, but what do you think what's your kind of impression of what people your age's like general position is?
Okay. I would say a lot of people my age are kind of starting to get away from it a little bit, and maybe I feel like for me in my life personally, I feel like because again, I grew up in the church. I've seen, you know, friends and people I knew in the church, you know, slowly kind of walk away for a lot of different reasons. But I feel like there's a lot of people my age who probably are, you know, maybe the trend is probably going like a little bit like this as far as like the number of people who are, you know, following or believing in the Bible and believing in Jesus. That would be my guess. But I would say, you know, it's becoming a smaller group, at least in my life. It feels that way.
That's pretty accurate. Some of the data I've seen is, yeah, the younger demographics are definitely, a lot more of them are going away from like a specific position, and they're being like, oh, I'm more, there's like a decline in theism and an incline in spirituality.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of that, in my opinion, stems from not making well, I remember when I was in college, right? I had faith and all that stuff, but I didn't follow it at all. I was off goofing off, doing crazy stuff and sitting like a wild person, right? And even though I had the foundation in my life, I wasn't really thinking about it at all. It wasn't really something that I was contemplating. I was busy, distracted with youth and freedom and a young adulthood and everything else, like having a grand old time. So I think for a lot of folks your age, it's normal, right? But then the interesting thing for me will be when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, what do people kind of shift and make a go back, or will it remain a much more divided demographic? So that's why I'm very interested to see what happens. What would you think? What's your gut instinct on that one?
I mean, my heart wants to say it's going to get better, but I think deep down, I think I only see it kind of getting worse, and kind of just because like for me, so much of it stemmed off of like TikTok, of just like how many like I was being surrounded constantly with so much information that was kind of like, how could you believe this? How could you think this? And that's where it started for me. I was like, clearly there's a lot of people who disagree with what I believe. Is there reasoning for that? Is there evidence for that? And I just feel like there's so much information constantly thrown out that had I not been brought up in the faith, I probably wouldn't be staying here. I feel like I've gained evidence during the time of being like, I'm not sure, that like reaffirms those beliefs. But I feel like there's so much stuff, so much information out there, and so many people fighting for different beliefs and stuff, that it's going to get harder and harder and harder to weed out the truth from the lies, if that makes sense.
No, that definitely makes sense. And okay, so TikTok, were you seeing a lot of the like deconstructionist videos and stuff? For sure. Okay, I see a lot of that stuff. It's kind of interesting to me. Like I've taken the time to. Part of the reason I actually got involved in YouTube and started doing all that stuff was, I really came across. I was busy in business world and 1,000 miles an hour, wasn't paying attention to all that stuff. When in 2020, I kind of had a little bit more time on my hands, and I started paying attention. And I was watching some of these like deconstruction videos, and I'm like, man, the majority of these are extraordinarily superficial. Like from a doctrinal perspective and an understanding level of the faith and such. I was sitting and listening to the reasons they were against it, and I'm like, really? That's what did it for you? Really? Like, did you think this one through very much? And I've probably, the reason I'm bringing that up is I've been curious at how many folks are, they've been, prior to even coming across it, they were looking for ways to escape. And therefore just took whatever came across. It was like, oh yeah, there's grabbing onto it, and not actually taking the time. So did you say for like last year you've been engaged in like an apologetics group or something? Is that what's going on?
Only for the last couple of weeks that's been. But like I said, this like whole last year I've been basically like out on my own without like kind of like the faith-based support groups that I've had before. And so I didn't have, that constant type group of being like encouraging each other and all that. And yeah, but so like over these last couple weeks, because these last like 2 months are when it's really been like really come to a head. And so just these last couple weeks, I feel like I've really been trying to search out, just truth and, outside of, like historical evidence, historical documents, and all these things that, again, I feel like support the Bible and support Jesus. I don't really remember what your question was, but I just started talking.
No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So in regards to your mini deconstruction that was going on, right?
Yeah.
For you, was it less whether or not God exists and more whether or not the Christianity was true, or was it, hey, if Christianity is false, then God is also false?
I would say probably more the last one, and that's maybe a little bit of like a like an egotistical answer, maybe. But again, I felt like I'd heard growing up that there was, like I'd heard some reasons of why, why Christianity and nothing else. And so I feel like in my head, it wasn't ever like, if our Christian God isn't real, then something else might be. I feel like I always grew up kind of being like, it's kind of either Christ or nothing. And so for me, it was, again, if the Bible isn't true, I've really got nothing to support my belief of God other than my own life experiences, which it becomes easier and easier to be like, probably just a coincidence, probably just like a random event that happened to me and not something that at the time appeared to be, like God working through my life in some way. And so, yeah, that would probably be my answer to that.
Interesting. So from a logical perspective, based on what you learned growing up, do you think that in general, the arguments against the other options do you still feel those were valid? Like that, and it was kind of okay, I've gone through this filter. Yes, if any of them are true, it would be Christianity. The rest of them I can reject. And then, like, as you were saying, like, hey, if that's false, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. That is kind of
the one, and like even growing up, I didn't get like a whole lot of information about like the other, beliefs and everything. But the one thing for me that always stuck out, and this was the reason early on I felt like I stuck with Christianity, is because if you look at pretty much every other religion, again, at least from what I've learned, it's all about us doing something in some way to like reach a certain level of spirituality or something like that. And the thing I kind of grew up hearing as a kid is the difference between all the other religions and Christianity is that there's nothing we can do to earn like that highest level, that like highest standing. And like all it is realizing that, no, I'm not even there. I'm like way down here in like the eyes of, in the standard of Christ and the standard of God. And so it's just then realizing, hey, I can't do this by myself. Like I need a savior, and nothing I can do is going to get me to be able to save myself. And for me, that was like enough of a big enough difference to be like, oh, all of these things have something to do that I have to do it. Christianity is realizing that there's nothing I can do. Like there's nothing I'm going to be able to do except realize there's nothing I can do and believe that, God sent his only son to save me from my sins. And if, whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. And that was enough early on for me to be like, that makes sense in my 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old head to like kind of keep me there in that faith until I've had some of these other questions.
Interesting. So another question I have for you, and by the way, how much time do you have? Do you need to leave or?
You probably got me like another 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So one of the things I hear a lot is, how restrictive Christianity is, right? Yeah. I operate from the perspective that there's limits and such, right? But in reality, we're just being prepared for something that is almost unlimited, right? Like we're from our primary barrier to do stuff, right, is how much time do we have left in our life, right? Mm-hmm. If immortality, i.e., post this mortal coil, right? If we're able to go into a next stage of existence where we're not limited to the mortal coil, right? Then the opportunity for us to do all sorts of other stuff becomes very, very interesting, in my opinion.
I've never really heard anything like
so where I'm going with all this is a lot of times I hear people very upset about the whole premise, especially from the Christian God perspective, right? Of, oh, why would I want to believe in this God where I'm going to be, after I die and I have this eternal life, I'm going to be like playing harps and floating on a cloud. Like that sounds boring. Like, why do I want to do that? Like, I don't want to do that, right? Yeah. my personal opinion is that that is a extraordinarily small-minded perspective on what eternal existence actually means. So what are your thoughts on that? And would you say that that dogmatic position is kind of drilled into people's heads might be one of the catalysts for people's negative stereotypes of Christianity?
Yeah, man, that's interesting. I feel like the reasons that I've talked to people in my life that are, maybe like have left the faith or kind of against the faith or all that, I personally have never heard that reason brought up. Of just like the idea that like our lives beyond our life now is not worth living our lives a certain way now. Is because that's what you're kind of saying, right? A little bit. Yeah. I personally just feel like people look at our lives here and be like, well, it feels like we have all these rules and all these things that we can or can't do. And if we do, we're like, we're damned forever, or, something like that. And dude, again, if I weren't a Christian and I was born today and knew nothing and looked out at the world and saw the way a lot of Christians live, I probably wouldn't be a Christian either. And we're very, very bad at it. And again, it's like a little bit like the point. But I feel like I've seen so many people fall away or not reach towards Christianity for different reasons. But the phrase that first like really kind of started getting me like into like wondering things was the saying that there ain't no hate like Christian love, because that's upsetting, right? That's really, that's not good. And I feel like I've seen so much of that. So like a lot of that being true, unfortunately. And I feel like that's more of a reason that I've seen people walk away is, saying people say one thing and then doing another thing. Now, granted, again, that is a little bit the point, is that we're never going to get there. However, we look at so much of the things that people have done who don't turn away from those things and still say they're believers. Everyone else looks at that and thinks this, we're all hypocrites. Does that make sense? Yeah,
absolutely. Makes total sense, man. Well, dude, I appreciate your time very much. Absolutely. You're welcome to come back anytime. I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try to do every weekend, and we'll see, at least in the fall while the weather's normal and we don't have to deal with crazy. Appreciate you, man. You have a good one. What's going on, man? You want to hop in the conversation? All right. What's up? I'm John. Taj, nice to meet you. Hey, what's your name? Do you want to get in the conversation too, or just okay? All right. What's up, man? You said Taj, right? Yeah. All right. So we are live. I assume you're okay with being live. Okay. Cool. So what's up, everybody? We got interview number 2, or actually, I guess interview. It's conversation. We'll see what goes on. All right. So Taj, what is your position? Are you a does God exist? Are you a yes, no, maybe? What's your position?
I believe God exists.
Okay. Are you and which God do you believe exists?
Yahweh, Jesus. Yahweh. Well, Yahweh. Yeah.
Okay, so are you like a Hebrew Israelite or Christian, or what's your position on that?
I don't even like put a title on it, because like that's when we get to getting technical. It's like, a lot of stuff is like man-made. It's just like made for people to be in order, like. Because life is about like living and learning. But yeah, like, so when you get to putting the title on it, it's like it puts you in different like areas, like basically like, all right, saying I'm a Christian and I do certain stuff. Now I'm a sinner because I do that. But I'm not a bad person morally, like, my spirit not dark, but because I do certain stuff, I'm damned. That don't really make sense. So like I don't really put a title on it, but I believe in God wholeheartedly.
So do you think that people who like reject God outright and just like, no, that you're ridiculous, you're a crazy person for thinking that God exists, like there's nothing but the material world, it's just naturalism explains everything, like do you think that those folks are being like, do you think you are the one being closed-minded, or do you think they're the ones that are being closed-minded in relation to like, is there anything beyond this, what we're currently observing? What do you think?
Of course, it's like it's energy. Like you can't deny energy. Like they can't deny energy. Even people that don't believe in God, so they know it's something that we can't see. Like, and then maybe they never like experienced like the presence of God. I could see I firsthand experienced like God's presence, so I can't deny him. Like I can't deny him at all. Like really, and on multiple occasions. So like, and when I called, he came. Like when I really needed him. So it's like. They closed-minded. It's them that's been closed-minded.
So you're saying that in the moment of truth, when you needed God to be there for you, he rose to the occasion and proved to you kind of beyond doubt that he exists.
Always, like every time. And then it's like then the way the world going, they're like it's like it's privacy, like it's the baseless in people's face, like. But people just, I guess they choose not to believe, like to get themselves a sense of comfort, like because like I guess with the actions, give them a sense of comfort. Like with the actions, I like they morally like who they are on the inside. Maybe I don't know. I can't. I'm not. I don't judge nobody. It's not me to judge nobody. But
well, that's a good point because like I think there's a lot of pushback against religion and therefore against God, because very often people are, rather than looking at like let's say we'll use Christianity as an example, right? Like the 10 Commandments. And it's kind of like, don't do this stuff, right? Like, I don't think any of us really disagree, or I would say 99% of humans all agree that everything in the 10 Commandments sounds pretty legit, right? Like, don't be stealing, don't kill, don't go cheat on your wife. Like, this is pretty basic stuff, right? But then oftentimes folks inside of, on the dogmatic side are like, if you did any of this stuff, then you're just a worthless human being. And why do you even exist, kind of thing, versus being like, hey, listen, idiot, we've all done something like this. And one of the things I always say to folks, there's an interesting thing in the New Testament about, Christ says he who's without sin cast the first stone, right? But he also says that if you have thought it, it's the same from God's perspective, right? So for me, in relation to when I think about all the stuff that I've thought about, I didn't do it, but I thought about it. So if from God's perspective, it's the same, then I in no way, shape, form, or fashion am in any position to be running around claiming everybody else is, I'm holier than thou and I'm better than you. And like, no, it doesn't mean that I should be like, just go do whatever you want and just be, go run around hurting people. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
That we live in the flesh. You understand that we still gonna have earthly desires, while we here. So, it's just about repentance. You knowing what you did. Like really, it's about repenting for what you know. Like, cause certain people sinning don't know they're sinning. But when you know, I think that's a difference. And knowing you sinning and it's like I feel like that hold a different weight. Like, well, that's just my personal thing. Cause if you know, then like why are you what I'm saying? There's something you could correct. If you don't know, you can't correct it.
So you're saying if somebody is operating from kind of the stage of innocence kind of concept of it's a little kid who doesn't know better, they did something, are you going to treat them the same as you would like a teenager who's been told 15 times not to do this? Like, kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a difference. Like it's a difference. So what just.
So I'm curious. It seems like your interactions with God. Well, here's a question I was going to ask you. So, what led you to believe that Yahweh is the true God?
That's what I called on when I needed him, and it showed me. And Jesus is like Yahweh, Jesus. It's all the same God. It's just different names. Like. And I feel like that's what like a lot of stuff like where people go wrong, like even like when like the Muslim people, I feel like it's all the same God. It's just different names or different like systems, but I feel like it's all the same God. But
so you kind of lean more towards like a universalism position versus specific.
That's why I say I wouldn't just put no title on like my spiritual, but I know it's a God, and I know it's a battle. I know it's a battle going on. So,
So, do you think that there are? We got helicopter flying over, folks. I guess they're probably flying into the hospital, I'm guessing. Okay, so obviously you believe God exists. Do you think that all the stuff we've learned about over the millennia of, there's the good versus evil, there's like evil entities that are battling God and fighting for control and all kind of stuff. Do you think that's true, or do you think that is like mythology made up by humans?
I know that's true. Without a doubt. like I said, it's a wild trip. I mean, either you know or you don't, really. And it's like I said, I experienced that firsthand. So I understand this is the evil out here, and I know it's God out here. Like, so yeah, cause like I wouldn't, uh, I wouldn't even say I'm one of God's chosen people, but I know I got I'm like, I guess I could say I got a certain sensitivity to certain stuff, you know. So it's like, I could feel certain stuff. So yeah, like I said, I know it's both. I know it's a wild trip, without a doubt, especially like right now and the times we're in now. Is yeah. And then, like I said, revelations, everything coming to be. Like really.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, I think it's. I was talking with some folks about this the other day in relation to, Revelation, but also just the world we're watching. It's like, in my opinion, anybody who is operating from the perspective that there is not clearly defined lines being drawn across the planet is living in like naive. You're either ignorant or they're willfully refusing to even use their critical thinking skills and analyze what we're observing, right? Like
most people would rather be like naive to it because it gives them a sense of comfort, like that's why it got the people that say they don't believe, because it make them more comfortable with what's going on, like, and you just got to build up your shield, gotta make sure you protect it, for real, pray every day.
No, it's true, man. It's I think we're heading into the winter of this winter is going to be. So he's like, in case you say Game of Thrones, yeah, it's getting wild, man. I tell you what,
winter is covered up.
I was talking about. I think that the black horse is about to ride, and that's you familiar with the black horse on what they represent? So the black horse is in Revelation when the black horse rides, the economy collapses. Bread becomes a loaf of bread costs what you make in a day of work, and basically everything's just stupidly expensive, and people are like being lined up to starve to death.
The stuff going on with the crops and the livestock. So without a doubt, it's on the way. Like, I guess I don't know if they're waiting for the perfect time, but yeah, because they started with the gas. Well, gas going back down now. They started with the gas and food and stuff too went up, but the stuff kind of going back, and yeah, they getting ready for that.
Well, see, I don't know if the gas did go down, but the gas went down because Biden has been releasing ridiculous amounts of oil from the strategic oil reserves, and we're actually now down at the lowest level we've been since I think 1984. And I did the math on it a couple days ago. It actually equals, we have about it's now 19 days in our oil reserves. We have 19 days of supply left. The price went down temporarily because like the other day it was he released I think it was like 8.2 million barrels of oil from the reserve, and it's like, oh yeah, cool, it's gonna price dropped like 20 cents. The gas station driving around, you saw it, right? Oh, of course it did. They just released all this oil, but we're not filling it back up again. And then the day after, it was the same day they released it, they announced that we're gonna refill when oil gets down to $80 a barrel. It's like, okay, so when is that happening exactly? Like, that's not. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. But so to the point we're talking about now, I think it's pretty obvious that the lines have been drawn and weird stuff's about to happen. And we kind of brought up food. Now we kind of switched topics slightly, but in learning about the food, there's been multiple CEOs of major food distribution companies that have come out in the last couple of weeks and said that by like November, they're going to be raising prices 2 to 3x on a lot of food products. So if people are already having a hard time buying food right now and things go up 2 or 3 times, woo, it's about to get wild. And then you got so India has shut off almost all of their rice exports, and they account for 40% of all the rice exported for the entire world. A lot of the world's flooding right now. California grows about 30%, and the report came out that so there's about 550,000 acres for rice in California, and 330,000 of them are empty. Nothing's growing at all. So it's not even like we might not get as much. It didn't even grow it at all. So I think things are about to get pretty interesting on that front. But anyway, I don't want you to keep your lovely lady. Good talking to you, man. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us, and glad we were able to have a conversation, man.
Yeah, it was good talking to you too. I was kind of just on the topic when I see you, so I'm like, I gotta stop and have a quick conversation.
Hey, well, I'm glad that we're here, man. Y'all have fun. Have a good one. Well, that was definitely interesting. I may turn this way so get some light. Everybody's been complaining about lighting. Give me 1 second, folks. Dang it, on mute. So switch things around a little bit, get a little different view. So sun will be a little bit different direction. I can stop getting blinded. Put my glasses on here. All right, so how is audio coming through? Is it still working? Lost my. So audio is not coming through at all? All right, so audio is still good. All right, awesome. Well, this has definitely been an adventure so far. Let's see. We what time is it? I was gonna call it quits. Oh man, I was gonna call it quits in about 5 minutes. So yeah, this has definitely been fun. Got two. Actually, let's see. We had two guys back to back, and then had the kids in the first little private stream. Do with the members. It's definitely definitely interesting. I've had a good time so far. Not bad for first round of the conversation. What's going on, man? Yeah, we got John. Ryan, nice to meet you, man. So doing a live stream and doing. Are y'all locals, Nashville, or busy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm getting ready to. I'm gonna start doing this like once a week here in the park. We'll do different topics. So this week it's this guy exists, and there's a few other what we're doing, and we're just gonna do round robin stuff. But so we're live right now. So if you want to have join the conversation, first off, I'll kind of ask you like who you are, what's your background, what brings you here, what your position is on whether or not God exists. So without further ado, Mike's yours.
All right. Okay, cool. So I'm Ryan, just moved to Nashville about over a year ago, work in advertising, went to school in Michigan from San Diego. I actually grew up going to church, then stopped, got invited to go to church in like middle school, got super involved. And then like senior year of high school, I wanted to start a band because San Diego's where Blink-182 is from. They had like this legendary venue, and I found out how easy it was to play the venue that they grew up in. And I got asked to stop playing at the church. At that point, they said it wasn't a good image, and I wasn't singing about drugs or alcohol or anything, probably just about girls and heartbreak. That really put a sour taste in my mouth. So I definitely did my own investigating. And I have a lot of friends who like served in the military, and they go to Africa and they see just starving and dying people on the ground, and you like really question if God exists or not. And sometimes crazy miracles happen and you hear all these stories, but then other times you see all this like horrible stuff happen in the world, and it really makes you question if if it exists or not. So I really don't know where I stand on it, and that's kind of where I am with it. I grew up in the church, but I question it.
So if I interpreted everything correctly, you initially were, all good about it. Then you kind of had that bad taste in your mouth because it was like, what are y'all being like holier than thou types? And like, I'm not doing anything that bad. Like, why are you guys judging me like now kind of thing? So that kind of kickstarted your like questioning, is like, this legit kind of thing? Okay. Essentially. And then it seems to me that the secondary, like maybe now the primary factor is the problem of evil, and with, why would God let all this negative stuff happen? Is that right?
Yeah, that's what it is. And we were talking about that, today, is that we don't have too much to complain about in life. Like, there's a lot of people who, like there's people who were born without arms and legs, and they make do with what they have. And then like, sometimes you like feel like, oh, I don't have that much to complain about in life. Life's not that bad. And you think about how much worse life could be. And then you wonder, why is my life better than other people's? Like, I don't do anything to make my life better. I was blessed with good health, and, my parents were able to help me go through college, and, I have a roof over my head, and I have a job that pays me well. Like, why are there people that are like suffering? Like, did they do this to themselves? Or if there's a God, did he do it to them? What is it? Is this bad karma? Like, there's just so many horrible things happening in this world that makes you question if God is real, and if he's real, is he fair?
So I hear that kind of stuff a lot, and to me, on the surface level, it has a lot of weight, and for a lot of philosophers and people, it's a primary reason that they're atheists, right? Is God cannot exist, right? So there's things like the free will defense from Plantinga. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
All right, so the short version of the free will defense is like, if we have free will, then the vast majority of the things that are negative that we perceive as like, why does God let this happen? Well, if we didn't have free will, then we wouldn't be able to do all this stuff. So if we want to have this like perfect idyllic environment, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to have free will. So it's kind of that catch-22 of like, if you want to be able to not be a robot, then you have to allow for errors to occur from people who are not omniscient, right?
Yeah.
So unless we have omniscience, then we can't actually say what ultimately is negative and what's positive, right? So where I'm going with all that is in relation to one of the things I think that gets left off on this conversation a lot is we forget about God's frame of reference. Like, assuming God exists, right?
Yeah.
If God exists and is eternal, we exist and we're currently our frame of reference is finite, right? Mm-hmm. From God's perspective, this little time that we're in right now is like a blip. Then, while to us, it's like, why would God let any of this negative stuff happen? And it's like, well, you actually have eternal existence, and this is like your infancy.
Yeah.
And as infants, right, or as we grow up, think about this: when you were like 3 or 4 and you like fell off your tricycle for the first time, right? Yeah. It was the end of the planet. Like, oh my goodness, you scraped your leg up. It's like crying, world's coming in, right? You get a little bit older, you fell off your bike, same kind of thing. You got to middle school, you had your first girlfriend, or you wrote the note like, hey, you want to date? And she says no, your heart's broken. Or she says yes, and then 2 weeks later breaks up with you and your heart's broken, right? Yeah. You get older, same logic applies, right? Yeah. Things actually get worse as you get older, right? But then as you look back on them, for me anyway, I kind of crack up at how just overloaded I was at that particular moment. Because it was the first time I'd experienced it. It seemed horrific, and I look back on it, I was like, that was actually not that bad. Oh wait, I learned all this stuff, right? But I also am operating from the perspective that this is only a minuscule sliver of my overall existence. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make the acceptance of the things you're talking about, like all these people are starving to death or born without arms and legs and all that kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, especially like on the deformity side, I looked this up a couple weeks ago. It's a minuscule fraction of people that are born like deaf, blind, all kinds of stuff. It's a very minute fraction, right? Yeah. However, for the folks who are like arguing against the existence of God, they try to make it like it's this gigantic
population,
percentage, right? And it's like, well, God, why is God letting this happen to all these people, right? And it's actually a very, very minuscule fraction of it. So it was what I'm saying makes sense?
Yeah, no, I definitely get that part. And then I know it's a small number of people, but it just makes you question why, like, some people are, blessed with like better health than other people, that's like my biggest thing. It's like, my coworker's mother passed away recently of, you know, cancer. And it's like, well, then you feel guilty almost talking about your mom. You're like, you don't want to talk about your mom because your mom's still around, because, you know, she was unfortunate enough to have her mom pass away. And I do like what you said about like the lessons and everything, you know, like you said, it could always be worse. You know, I recently went through like a breakup that was, you know, 7 months of dating, but then my brother went through one recently that was 6 years. Very big difference. It could always be worse. As I like to tell myself, like, hey, my situation could be a whole lot worse, but you know, there's still lessons to be learned and everything, like you said.
One of the things I always I think about in these conversations too, and on this topic is and this would, you know, be operating from like the Christian perspective, right? But if if Christianity is true, right, then it's clearly delineated that as we are approaching the end, that stuff's going to get way worse, right? And things are going to be real bad, all the way up to the point where, in Revelation says that, for the exact wording, but it's paraphrase is, unless God stopped it, everybody would be dead, right? But it's the actions of humans that are causing all of this evil, right? So I would say that if Christianity is true, then the argument against the existence of God that is derived from why is all this bad stuff happening, right? It's like, well, it's literally delineated. This is exactly what's going to happen. And then what's the end of the story? The end of the story is that there's eternal existence and all of the negative gets erased. And you get to live in like a whole new idyllic level of existence, right? So to me, in terms of whether it's a substantive argument against God, I'm saying if the Christian God is true, then it's like, really, what's your problem exactly? Like, this is, I'm expecting this, number one, I'm preparing for it, number two, and then number three, it's like the end of the story is pretty freaking awesome. So what's the problem? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I respect that. And like I said, my view is very undecided right now. Like, I know I like to believe that there is a greater being. I like to think that there's also a difference between like organized religion and like your own personal beliefs. And I feel like I did a lot more growing outside of the church than I did inside the church. Because inside the church, you know, you're kind of afraid to be like, well, I don't agree with that. You know, my pastor said this, and, you know, Johnny next to me agrees. So I don't want to disagree, you know. And then when you're alone, you can kind of, you know, do your own research and, you know, kind of find a belief that, you know, fits you. You know, it's like a pair of shoes. Not all of them are going to fit everyone the same, you know. So maybe, you know, Converse fit me differently than it would fit him. So, you know, your belief doesn't have to be like everyone else's, but you could still believe in the same God. That's where I stand right now.
No, that makes sense. And I would agree with you that I think, and by the way, it's also in the Bible too, right? That as we're going towards the end, there's going to be a bunch of people who are basically a bunch of raging hypocrites who are full of themselves and are actually not even remotely, well, even, for the church of Laodicea in Revelation, Christ says that he would basically rather spew them out of his mouth, right? Because they're a bunch of lukewarm jokers that aren't actually doing what they say to do, and they're telling everybody else to do. And simultaneously, that, to your point of the organized religion, I agree with you 100%. I haven't gone to, I've been in a church, you know, but I haven't been like a churchgoer for 15 years.
Wow.
To your point about growing dramatically more outside of the church than in the church, I am 100% with that. Wow. But a part of that for me stems from, that's the hypocrisy you're referring to. I saw it all the time. I saw the people who it's like, oh, on Sundays there are these holier than thou types, and then you see them out on the bar, you know, being the epic drunk on Monday, you know, like
college sports athletes have the Bible verses in their Bible or in their bios on like Instagram,
right?
And you see them at the bar, and it's like every girl that approaches them, they're like, oh,
exactly,
my pick of the litter.
Exactly. But the thing for me is like the argument that because people who believe in God don't act perfect, therefore God does not exist, to me is a what's that, man? Oh, sure, man. Appreciate it. It's like, at least from the Christian perspective, right? It's clearly stated that all of us are sinners, right?
Yeah.
And the whole entire reason that we need salvation is because we suck.
Exactly.
Right. And then on the flip side, it's like, well, that person did exactly what the Bible said they're going to do. Therefore, the Bible is false. And it's like, have you thought that one through logically at all? Of like, I mean, actually, to me, that would be the reciprocal. It would actually confirm that the argument is true. You know, whether or not say all of Christianity is true and all that stuff, but I'm saying just from that perspective, right? that's the whole point. How is that negation? I don't think that's true, right? And I understand, at the same time, I understand why people operate from that perspective. It's like there's no way this many people could be. If this was true, there can't be this many people. There would be, it's complete sharks that are in run around acting like the rest of us are minnows. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah. No. Well, I appreciate it, John.
It's a good talk. Absolutely. You want to share your thoughts too?
No, but yeah, we're actually out here filming a video. If you want to answer a quick question of his, he wants to ask people about life advice.
Life advice. Okay. Sure. What's up?
Yeah, so I actually also make content on the internet.
Okay.
And I do like positivity and like mental health online.
Okay.
So if you don't mind being in a video, clearly not. I was gonna ask you. Your voice memos open. Yeah, I gotta look at this one first.
Well, folks, this is getting fun.
Am I on the live stream too?
Oh yeah.
Oh sweet. Okay.
No, I turned it off just for you.
All right.
So you get multiple angles. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Check. Okay. You ready? What is one piece of life advice that changed your life?
Life advice to change my life. I would say probably it's don't act like you have to experience everything to be able to avoid potholes. Take the time to go and learn from those who came before and think deeply about their advice. You don't have to take everything and do exactly what you're told, but at the same time, if you don't try to learn from people who came before, then you're guaranteed to step in the same pothole and have the exact same reaction. It's like, oh, well, I learned from this, but you could have avoided it, idiot. And that was something that I learned when I was like 22, and haven't followed it 100%, but I have definitely attempted to do so as much as possible to streamline my life as much as I can.
And how old are you now?
38.
And you would say that has helped?
Oh yeah, big time.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good day, man.
You said you're gonna be out here every Saturday?
I'm planning on it.
Is it all God related, or is it just anything?
No, no. This week I'm doing God related. I'm probably gonna do an abortion one. I've got some banners that were supposed to arrive yesterday, and they say like science, politics, philosophy, and they didn't arrive. No, they're gonna come until Tuesday. So next week I should have big banners. I'm hoping it'll draw a much bigger crowd.
Yeah,
dude, I respect this.
You do
awesome.
You do a podcast, or what is it?
Just YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your channel?
Logical, plausible, probable.
All right.
So the foundation of also I'm doing is mostly those three things, in my opinion, have been dramatically negated in modern society in terms of critical thinking, and a gigantic percentage of at least people in Western civilization do not think critically, and they will accept things that it might be logical from a formal perspective, but not remotely plausible.
Yeah.
And I try to operate my life from decisions I make. They need to be both logical, plausible, and probable. If they don't have all three, then there's a high probability that I'm being an idiot.
Yeah. Cool. Well, take care, man.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Good time with you guys. Have a good one. And go to the video. Well, that was fun. Should be interesting to see how this turns out and how next week goes. I think I'm going to call it quits here because it's going to take me about 30 minutes to shut down and get everything loaded back up in the car, and then I got to go be productive the rest of my day. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully the first stream here of Live in the Park has been a success, and everybody likes it. And let me know if you would like to see more of these in the future. Like I said, I'm planning on doing at least a couple more over the weekend. Over the weekends here in the fall, and hopefully it will turn into gain some traction and bring in a lot of folks for conversation. So thanks everybody, and I gotta go. Thanks so much.